crazy that statutory rape is what took it all down, right? Because it's underage hand jobs, right? That's what took it all down.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be what took Jeffrey Epstein down.
Kind of crazy.
Even that has a really interesting geopolitical history. There was a similar scandal in the early 2000s with a private military contractor called DynCorp, which again runs through this Adnan Khashoggi kind of Middle Eastern network. DynCorp got in trouble for trafficking, facilitating the traffic. It was a major U.S. military and CIA contractor for logistics and institutional support and military assistance on the ground for the U.S. military all over the world. They got in trouble basically trafficking underage kids to Middle Eastern sheikhs. And I believe in the early 2000s, and I believe the reason that was alleged by Congress that they did that was to juice the deals with them. That basically, these people who were critical. If you're operating on the ground in Kuwait or, pick your Middle Eastern, country, in order to serve your purpose for the U.S. government to be this outside, plausibly deniable, but extensively infrastructured professional support outfit on the ground, you need the support of the local government. You need the support of the local high-level officials. They need to be happy. And there's several currencies for that. There's financial payoffs, and there's other things they might like parties and young women, especially in places where being with the very young female is not illegal. And so what DynCorp, I believe, got busted doing, and you can look up the DynCorp scandal here, was doing this. And I believe their argument was, well, you wanted us to do this thing on the ground. You wanted us to help the U.S. military and kind of covert support nodes that were happening here. We had to do it somehow. This is part of what helped us do that. I would not be surprised if the Epstein trafficking apparatus started with similar motivations. Not that it's not necessarily for blackmail, but because it makes clients or customers or VIP people happy. It makes them owe you something. It makes them want to get involved in a deal you do, even if the deal is not one they would ordinarily do, because they just want to stay close to you because you're their supplier of the thing, of their vice, of the thing that they want but can't get. If you're a 70-year-old billionaire, you can't walk into a bar and leave aside the underage thing. You can't walk into a bar, and meet an 18-year-old who's, I presume, these things are facilitated at private parties, and it needs to, for a lot of these guys, it has to be discreet. They've got wives, they've got reputations, and there's an aspect of this that plays out at every institution. I worked at a New York law firm, and there's ways that you can make partner. At least this was kind of the vibe that I felt like. Some people make partner because they're really good technically at what they do. They're just amazing. They're just technical whizzes on the minutia of how to structure a merger or acquisition. They're just really great at structuring an offshore banking transaction, or they just know absolutely everything about tax law. There's some people who move up because of nepotism. They're the brother and they're the son-in-law of a major partner. There's some people who make partner because they brought in one client who's just a really big rainmaker. And there's some people who move up because they open doors to partners while they're associates. They introduce them to someone. They host events. They've got, tickets to exclusive things. And the partners just like being around that person because they get access to that person in a currency that they can't get on their own. And that includes hosting, cool exotic parties, having, attractive women. I've never been convinced that the central role of the Epstein young girl, in my view, sidebar of the Epstein money laundering story is that it was for blackmail. And part of this is because the moment Jeffrey Epstein officially threatens somebody with blackmail, and that person tells his wife, and that wife tells her friends, and that gets out to somebody else that knows Jeffrey Epstein's access goes away overnight. That's the sort of thing that even a rumor of that spreading, and nobody else is going to want to do business with them.
So you think people just assume it's blackmail because that is how you would blackmail someone, especially underage girls?
I think it is very possible that there could have been indirect blackmail, meaning Epstein passes it on to an intelligence service, to a corporate espionage client or something, and they use that for their own purposes. But even then, I mean, imagine, for example, if, like on the Bill Gates thing, like there was Bill Gates gets an email, I have a video of you sleeping with this person, and, or somebody much lower level. The moment they send that to the press, if, in order to, they figure they have nothing to lose. I mean, there's not been anybody in the 7 years that's transpired who said, I was personally blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. I think because the moment you do that, nobody comes to your parties anymore. You lose all the access. You lose all the deal flow. You lose all the goodwill that you've generated because this rumor, people are very risk averse, especially at that level.
Right. But just to have it over their head and never use it, though.
Right. Well, I think that what you could have is, because he does his own nefarious stuff, he could compile it so that if they ever threaten him with something, he's now got something on them. And I've seen some correspondence that, in the files that looks like that might not be an impossible scenario.
Do you think that's how Jeffrey Epstein got in that position in the first place, that they knew he had this kink?
No, not at all. I mean, Adnan Khashoggi had the same thing. Adnan Khashoggi was running around with dozens of young and, apparently underage girls, the whole time. I think that Jeffrey Epstein probably learned, how powerful that can be through that network, seeing that's what powerful people do, that gives them something that gets them a lot of local influence and wins them a lot of favor.
That's a very specific illicit desire